So as a white kid growing up, and I mean, you obviously see black people come to the suburbs either to do the garden or to clean or wash. You know, what are the parents saying? Where are these people coming from? If you guys aren't told about the township, it's a valid question.
Yeah, no,
where do these people just come from and go away in the evening? Where are they going? Where are they coming from? Where are they going to in the evening?
So I suppose those questions weren't asked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you know, that's the shock of it. So I grew up watching movies, like not watching television. Television only came when I went to university. So the ability of that government to entirely compartmentalize and shut down information was incredible.
Was insane.
And I was like born in the perfect moment in terms of them, you know, brainwashing, I suppose, what you would call it. Yeah.
That's wild, man. It's like you're talking about a different world, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. But a completely singular and unusual experience for me was I had university friends that got a house at Crown Mines, basically where F&B Stadium is now. And there were empty houses there, and they rented it as a commune. And I used to go and stay with them. And I walked from the house the one Sunday, and there's the mine dump behind it. And I climbed up on top of the mine dump, and I walked across the mine dump, which is like a bit like crossing the Sahara Desert, because it was like this endless white sand. And I got to the other side, and on the other side of that mine dump is Diepkloof. So now, if you were to stand on that mine dump, you would look and there'd be that highway between you and Diepkloof. But then there was no highway. And I could see Soweto like stretching into infinity. It was like this huge, huge landscape. And I'd never seen a township before. Okay, so that was how compartmentalized my life had been.
Wow.
I'd never seen a township.
Sure.
So in that moment, I kind of understood the scale of the lie, if you know what I mean. I kind of understood, and I had this incredible urge to sort of walk down into that space.
And see what's happening.
But in fact, I was nervous. I was like this sort of lone white guy standing on this hill. And I looked down and I could see life happening on those streets. I could see people kicking
Kids
balls
playing,
and, you know. And I walked back across the mine dump back to that house. In fact, it was those houses that when Chris Hani, there was the memorial for Chris Hani. Do you remember there were some houses that were burnt? And it was one of those houses. So I suppose in that moment, I thought, I want access to all that I've been denied, basically, which was an understanding of broader South Africa.
Lovely.
And I suppose, that was it. And it was a complete marker. And from then, I sought to find my way into the spaces that had been denied.
Is this when you start bomb productions?
No, this is many years
the
before.
80s, yeah.
Yeah, this is way before.
So, this is the beginning. This is probably the end of the 70s.
Wow. So as a white kid growing up, and I mean, you obviously see black people come to the suburbs either to do the garden or to clean or wash. You know, what are the parents saying? Where are these people coming from? If you guys aren't told about the township, it's a valid question. Where do these people just come from and go away in the evening? Where are they going? Where are they coming from? Where are they going to in the evening?
So I suppose those questions weren't asked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you know, that's the shock of it. So I ended up doing the autobiographical film on Madiba, right?
Yeah.
and I spent a lot of time with him at one particular moment.
Madiba.
Yeah. Wow. But when I was, if you had asked me when I was 16 who Nelson Mandela was, I would not have been able to tell you who he was.
Wow.
I did not know there was this figure in prison. I barely knew. I knew there was a Robben Island and there were activists there, you know. So there was, you know, because also I grew up without television, right? So television came in the moment that I went to university.
You make TV, Murray grew up with that.
Yeah, no, so literally. So I grew up watching movies, like not watching television. Television only came when I went to university. So the ability of that government to entirely compartmentalize and shut down information was incredible.
It was insane.
And I was like born in the perfect moment in terms of them, you know, brainwashing, I suppose, what you would call it. Yeah.
That's wild, man. It's like you're talking about a different world, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a very different and particular world. And I don't think there are, I mean, when I made a film recently in Colombia, in South America, and the divisions between poverty and extreme wealth feel familiar.
Got you.
I mean, the same with Brazil, in fact. If you go to Rio and you see those favelas up against those tower blocks.
Are insane.
It feels familiar. And the other thing is that, you know, I suppose with Colombia, it's a very, very warm society, but it's a very violent society. And I suppose it feels the same with us. If I think of South Africans, I think of us as being incredibly warm, incredibly giving on the one hand, and then incredibly violent on the other.
So explain to me, like, when you tell a story like Yizo, Shaka, and whatever, how's that? Is that like the stories that you felt you were robbed as a kid?
I mean, before I made those, I made a lot of documentaries, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, in the last part of the 80s, I did a series of documentaries on the history of Soweto. So our rule with that documentary was that there were no experts. Nobody spoke about anybody else. You only spoke about your own experience. And the thing was, in that moment, they were still alive, the people that had been the first removals. They were still alive. And so I had spent years like talking to people. And so I suppose, you know, those experiences definitely informed the narrative stuff that I made. And because documentary was so important in my life, when I got to making dramatic stuff, I always looked to the real world to try and find inspiration and to find the great stories, the truth of it. So,
makes sense.
There you have it, guys. Our African leaders are really trying their best to manage Africa's challenges as much as they are. And when we show these speeches here on this channel, we actually encourage to share our thoughts in the comments. And so whatever it is you guys think about these speeches, please do share your thoughts in the comments.
Thank you for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please share and like and subscribe, because that's the way you support Kwazemi as a channel, an Afrocentric channel, where we try to understand deeper issues in African history and hopefully develop a collective intelligence on how we wish to build the Africa we want to see as people of Africa. See you in the next one.